our first speaker is Adrian Hightower. Dr. Adrian Hightower is an experienced manager, educator, and consultant with expertise with renewable energy and water treatment technologies that address the water energy nexus. Dr. Hightower consults with a number of battery, photovoltaic, and power utility companies. He has managed numerous technical teams in academic and industrial settings. Dr. Hightower has conducted international research and facilitated entrepreneurial activities addressing sustainability, renewable energy, and the water energy nexus. He has published numerous papers in these fields, holds several patents, and has been invited speaker at numerous national and international conferences. Dr. Hightower received his Bachelor of Science, Master's, and PhD from the California Institute of Technology and is currently representing the Metropolitan Water District. So Adrian, if you'd like to go ahead and join us in, and thank you for your presentation and time today.
Great. Thank you, Danny. Can everybody hear me? Can everyone hear me?
Sounds good. We got you.
Good. So my job is to introduce you to the Metropolitan Water District and some of the issues that we are facing, particularly with climate change and the drought, and how these issues affect not only our customers but campers as well. So you can see more information on our conservation measures at bewaterwise.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter. So to give you a brief overview, Metropolitan Water District is one of the largest water agencies in the country, servicing 19 million people, and essentially we're the wholesaler for water in Southern California. We bring water from the north and east to serve a 5,200 square mile service area. That includes 6 counties. This is done in partnerships with 26 member agencies, so we're run by a board. And the most important thing to appreciate is because these member agencies span 6 different counties, everyone has different water needs, different water supplies, different water issues, more or less agriculture, more or less recreation. And none of these goals can be achieved unless there is cooperation. So it's really an amazing thing to appreciate that if each one of these member agencies did their own thing or just followed their own bottom line, our water system would not work. Its basic tenet is cooperation. And so where Metropolitan is the importer of water, we rely on our member agencies to supply it to your home. So Metropolitan sells the water to anyone you pay your bills to in Southern California. Okay, so my role as education manager is we try to get people critically thinking about water, particularly targeting students and teachers, and we do this with a variety of activities. We have art programs, we have curriculum tied to standards. That curriculum is available for free for folks in our service area. We also, interestingly enough, hold the largest solar boat competition in the country. This is our Solar Cup program, so you'll see one of the photos in the center of the slide. And these are where high school students take canoes, they put holes in perfectly good canoes, and then they add solar panels and batteries. So if at your camps, if you ever want to electrify or solarify your canoes, we can certainly help you in that. In addition to that, we teach students about conservation measures, and on the lower left, you'll see an example of a rain barrel. And rain barrels are wonderful ways of teaching water conservation as well as conserving rainwater. Good. To give you an overview and a perspective of where your water comes from, we're going to give you a quick rundown on runoff. And runoff is the combination of 2 things, rainfall and snowpack. And in the case of a drought, or in the case of climate change, which affects everyone throughout the country and the world, those 2 forms of precipitation are heavily impacted. In California, we're having significant issues with the lack of precipitation, both rainfall and snowpack. I mentioned Metropolitan imports the water to Southern California, and essentially we import it from Northern California in the Northern Sierras, and we also import it from the Colorado River and the Colorado River Basin. Here you'll see a blue line associated with the California Aqueduct, and if you're ever in California, if you drive on the 5 freeway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, you're driving next to that aqueduct. if you're ever driving down the 10 freeway on the way to Arizona, you're driving next to that Colorado River aqueduct. So we bring water from far to a local service area. All right. Let me go back. That northern Sierra and the upper part of the California and that upper Colorado River basin, those are our watersheds. That's where we get our water from. And the snowpack there is important. And that's precisely what's being impacted by the drought. So in this slide, you'll see the blackened area highlighting where our water comes from Colorado. That is moderately impacted by the drought. But in California, in the white highlighted area, you'll see that same space significantly highlighted by the drought. Now, this is a drought monitor map that changes daily, really, and this is a most recent one from 2015. But the important thing to appreciate is this drought for California has been going on for the past 4 years. Okay, so we see that we're being impacted by the drought. What does that mean for us? If you look at the previous slide, here we see water from the northern Sierra going into what we call Lake Oroville. So the water melts slowly, the snowpack melts, goes into that Lake Oroville. As we go forward, these are pictures of Lake Oroville. The upper picture is from 2012, which was a drought year, and the one on the bottom is for 2013, which is a severe drought year. So we've been in a drought for 4 years, but the magnitude has increased and its sustained impact has increased. This is Lake Oroville, where a significant amount of our water comes from, and this is another picture of Lake Oroville, that same slide. So the drought is real, and even though we have the infrastructure to provide water, we are limited by the amount of water that we have, which is shared by not only urban settings, environmental settings, agriculture, so there's a lot to take into account. This is one more that really drives home the message. This is the Phillips Snow Course in the northern Sierras where we were just looking. This is the snowpack prior to the drought, and you can see the top of this pole being used. If we look again now at 2015, most recently, we can't even see the top of that pole. We should really have a significant snowpack by April. But the little snow that we had has run off. So we are really changing the way that we think about water and deliver water to Southern California. Okay. So with that being said, even though we've been focusing on Southern California, this is a nationally broadcast webinar, and the impacts of climate and our utilization has national and global effects. This is a NASA map indicating wetness and particularly associated with groundwater. And we can see significant decreases with our groundwater. Actually, I'm sorry, this measures wetness, so this is similar to the drought monitor. But the important thing to appreciate is that we have significant variations throughout the country. So wherever you are probably impacted to some extent by climate change, and that is therefore impacting your utilization of water. In California, we have less precipitation, these reduced snowpacks, we have reduced runoff, and that reduced runoff has depleted our ability to recharge our groundwater. So people who are traditionally relying on pumps are having a harder and harder time to utilize that pumps. This is particularly the case in the San Joaquin Valley, which is really the center part of California, where a tremendous amount of our agriculture comes from, not only for national, but is exported as well. Those groundwater levels have been significantly decreased. And this is going to be more important for camps. Not only has our groundwater been decreased, but our lakes, which serve as our water storage, our drinking water, have also been significantly decreased. Before we bring it back to camps, we'll go on a global scale. If we think of this globally, we can look at the change of runoff over approximately the last 50 years. And you can see that there are significant deviations, particularly as we look in the United States between the West Coast and the East Coast. In the West Coast, we have traditionally had, in the last 4 years, a significant decrease in drought. But over the past 50 years, we've had a decrease in runoff. And runoff is associated not only with climate change, but also with the amount of precipitation, the temperatures within the air, within the atmosphere, and so this issue is a global one. If we bring it back closer to home and how this impacts camps, I mentioned that in Southern California, we bring the water from Northern California into Arizona. Well, along the way, before it gets to our users, before it gets to your houses or your schools, it is diverted into reservoirs, these lakes. And these lakes serve as our storage capacity for water, so that in dry years we can utilize this water. Well, these lakes also serve as recreation, and depending where your camp is, there's a good chance you might have an outing or have some utilization of these lakes, certainly these rivers and streams. But one of these things you can see is this is, I think, yesterday's report from midnight. We were up late. But you can see our current storage levels for Diamond Valley Lake, which is a total capacity of 810,000 acre-feet. So I'm looking at the lower left corner. It says Diamond Valley Lake. That's really our largest water reservoir, and that is 50% full. It's 50% full or 48% full because for the past 3 years we have been systematically calling on our storage to compensate for the lack of water that we've gotten associated with the drought. With Lake Skinner, we're at 74% full. Lake Matthews is 39% full. So there's a good chance if your camp is near some water source and you do recreation that you can visibly see this impact and pass that along to your campers. One of the ways that we typically explain drought and our water issues is to talk about the water cycle. And we have a material for campers in Southern California available for free, and we also are happy to do demonstrations. But the idea is that the water cycle is a circular cycle that is based on gravity and energy from the sun. We get evaporation, the moisture condenses in our atmosphere, eventually it condenses to a point where we get precipitation, different types of precipitation, whether it's rain or snow or sleet or hail or even dew is considered precipitation. That precipitation eventually turns into runoff that goes into our streams or refills our aquifers or is stored in our lakes, and then it eventually returns to the ocean and the cycle completes itself. Well, this drought is really 2/3 of that equation, where we have significant evaporation. And if you want a fancy word for evaporation from plants, you see the evapotranspiration. But what we don't get is precipitation, and campers and students usually get that in terms of the whole cycle and its connection to our natural world.